What would you do if you believed your country was slipping toward tyranny? If you watched one man accumulate more power than any single person should ever hold, would you act? And what if that man was someone who had saved your life, trusted you, treated you like a son? These were the questions Marcus Junius Brutus could not escape in 44 BC, the year everything changed. Brutus came from a family defined by a single idea, that no one man should rule Rome. His ancestor Lucius Junius Brutus had helped tear down the last king of Rome, the tyrant Tarquin the Proud, and rather than seize power for himself, had led the people in a solemn oath. Never again. Rome became a republic, built on the principle that power must always be shared, always be checked, always be answered for. 4.5 centuries later, that principle was under threat. Julius Caesar had spent years making himself impossible to ignore. Military campaigns that made him the wealthiest man in Rome. A civil war against his rival Pompey that he won completely. Lands distributed to the poor that made him beloved by the public. Statues built in his honor. Temples dedicated to his name. An entire month were named after him. Still called July today, and the title of dictator, meant only for wartime emergencies. Granted to him again and again until in 44 BC it was made permanent. Dictator perpetuo, dictator without end. For the senators who feared a return to monarchy, this was the line. A group of conspirators calling themselves the liberators began to meet in secret. Leading them were Gaius Cassius Longinus and his brother-in-law, Brutus. Joining the conspiracy was the hardest decision Brutus ever made. Caesar had personally saved his life after the Civil War, pardoned him, brought him close, elevated him. To conspire against this man was to betray someone who had shown him nothing but loyalty. But in the end, Cassius's persistence and Brutus's own fear of what Caesar was becoming proved stronger than his gratitude. The moment came on March the 15th, a Senate meeting, held just before Caesar was due to depart on his next military campaign. As many as 60 conspirators were present, daggers hidden beneath their togas. They surrounded him, they closed in, and they struck again and again, 23 times in total. Caesar struggled fiercely until he saw Brutus among his attackers. Then, according to some accounts, he simply stopped. He covered his face and fell. The conspirators had miscalculated everything that came next. They believed the public would see them as heroes, liberators restoring the republic their ancestors had built. Instead, Rome descended into panic. Mark Antony, Caesar's closest ally, delivered a funeral speech so powerful it turned the crowd's grief into fury. The liberators were driven from the city. Civil war followed, and Brutus, facing certain defeat, took his own life. The great irony is that everything the conspirators killed Caesar to prevent came to pass anyway. The republic they died to protect ended. Power concentrated in the hands of one man, under the title of emperor, and Rome was never a republic again. History has never quite agreed on Brutus. Dante placed him in the very center of hell, eternally punished for his betrayal. Others have called him one of the most principled men who ever lived. The truth, as it usually is, sits somewhere in the uncomfortable middle. He was a man who believed in something worth believing in, who made a choice he thought would save it, and who watched that choice destroy the very thing he was trying to protect. More than 2,000 years later, the questions he faced have not gone away. How much power is too much? When does loyalty to a person become a betrayal of a principle? And when you act to prevent a tyranny, how do you know you will not simply become the cause of a different one? Brutus never found the answers. Neither have we.